Welcome back. Today we continue with the history of Ida Wood. So we hope you enjoy the second and last part of this series. In mid-October 1907, a financial crisis erupted all across the country. Because of a stock manipulation scheme, the market panicked, liquidity shriveled up, and depositors lost confidence in the banks and began pulling out their assets. The stock market lost half of its value overnight. The crisis eventually led to the creation of the Federal Reserve. Everyone was affected, the richest and poorest in the country. As news spread about the deepening crisis, Ida moved to act. Ida wasn't willing to let her standing or fortune slide. Even before the panic, she sensed impending financial doom. When the news hit, she sprang into action. She marched to the bank and demanded that they hand over all of her money in cash. This was an inconceivable amount of money to pull all at once. The bank initially refused until Ida threatened to announce to all the other newspaper businesses that the bank would be unable to honor its obligations to its customers. After she threatened the managers with further financial chaos, the bank agreed to give Ida her due, $1 million, all in hard cash. Ida strolled out of the bank and walked into the streets of New York City with all that money in shopping bags. But that money wasn't enough for her. She sold all the furniture, paintings, and property. Everything that wasn't, or was, nailed down had to go. She liquidated everything into a pot of cash savings. Ida wouldn't just withdraw her money from the bank, she also removed herself from the world. Ida took one last trip around Europe with her sister Mary and daughter Emma to get one last look at the world. At a certain point, she presumably decided that she and her two sisters were spending the money far too quickly. Ida hastily returned to New York City. Mary and Emma eventually joined her and returned to the city sometime after. They found that Ida had moved into the Herald Square Hotel. They decided to move in with her, in their own rooms. This was the last anyone would ever see of the women, at least for a long time. The hotel staff was instructed not to enter Suite 552, where Ida and her sisters had barricaded themselves from the world. The women rarely handed over their towels for cleaning and subsisted on a simple diet of crackers, eggs, bacon, evaporated milk, and raw fish. Bellhops would deliver newspapers to their rooms and cigars on rare occasions, and Ida would ask for petroleum jelly. Even when these goods were delivered, their door never opened wide enough for anyone to get a good look inside. Ida continued to pass herself off as a destitute old woman, even though she had been paying in cash for 24 years. Only once was the door opened, and only one of the women left the hotel. In 1926, Emma, Ida's daughter, became violently ill. She left the room and entered hospitalized care. After turning 71, Mary died in the hospital. Neither Ida nor her sister Mary left the hotel to check on her. Even after her death, they remained in their hotel room. The door to the suites remained closed for 10 years after Ida's daughter Emma passed. The two women became even more suspicious and reclusive, even asking the hotel staff to deliver their food by throwing it over the transom, the window above the door. But suddenly, in 1931, a 70-pound Ida, now 93 years old, came screaming out of her hotel room for help. She was, by then, partially deaf. She feebly demanded medical help for her sister, who, it turns out, had already died. Upon her reappearance, the hotel became a nexus of movement. This 93-year-old woman began rambling about being a Southern belle, the wife of a congressman, and a socialite. The hotel staff put it down to senility, seeing all the yellowed newspapers, filth, and soiled sheets. Lawyers were assigned to look further into her case, including one Morgan O'Brien Jr. Upon searching her room, they found $10,000 in cash, worth almost $200,000 in today's money, as well as stock records, jeweled necklaces, and other priceless treasures. Even after 24 years, Ida was far from destitute. But with the death of her sister and with new light being shed on her life, Ida's health rapidly deteriorated. While she had not been able to bathe herself for quite some time, she had taken particularly good care of her face and skin. Her lawyer, O'Brien, commented, upon interviewing her, that he could tell what an extraordinarily pretty woman she had once been. According to her lawyer, her complexion was creamy, pink and unwrinkled, like tinted ivory. O'Brien uncovered much in his interview with Ida. She disclosed details about her late husband and time as a socialite. Additionally, as it turned out, Emma, who Ida had been passing off as her daughter for many years, had turned out to be her younger sister. Ida refused to move out of the hotel, and while the staff tried their best to prevent the press from getting wind of the story, the news soon broke. Soon, Ida's relatives were calling in from every corner of the country. The hotel agreed to move Ida to a room below. As well as finding a shoebox stuffed with $247,000, the lawyer found $500,000 in a secret pocket in her nightgown. In her 50 or so dusty old trunks, they found fine lace garments, bejeweled tiaras, watches, bracelets, all the finest pieces encrusted with gems. In the bathroom, they found a portable stove where they had occasionally heated their meals. Near the window, they found an ebony walking stick with a solid gold head, a gift Benjamin Wood had received from President James Monroe. More discoveries were made every day. An old box of crackers contained a diamond necklace worth $40,000. Upon being forced into the room directly below the place she had dwelt for 24 years, Ida sobbed. She had desperately clung to that suite. Even at such an old age, the pain of being exposed was just too much for her to bear. In less than a year after emerging to the outside world in an attempt to save her already dead sister, Ida Wood passed away. Her trunks, 54 in total, were moved into vaults in the Harriman National Bank. The hotel manager at the time, who had been working there for 7 years, said that he had never heard of Ida, nor had he heard about the woman living in Suite 552. She had always paid the maids and bellhops in cash when her due was up. When the bellhops went to her or her sister's rooms, she would tip them 10 cents, claiming it to be the only money she had left. One maid who worked for the hotel had to convince the mysterious women in the rooms to change the towels only twice. After her death, the tabloids went into a frenzy over the story. The stranger-than-fiction story gripped the imagination of New Yorkers and Americans everywhere. After a quarter of a decade of being out of the paper business, she was, posthumously, back in the news. The Brooklyn Standard-Union read, "A frail but spirited little lady of 93 years, once the belle of mid-Victorian days, today stomped her defiance of searchers spurred by the discovery of nearly $1 million in currency she hoarded in her hotel room because she was afraid of banks." According to her last will, her sister Mary and her daughter Emma were her wealth. But as she survived both of them, her vast fortune would be left to no one. This was during the Great Depression when most people in the United States were desperate. Relatives of Benjamin Wood came from every corner of the country. Additionally, people with Mayfield in their family tree also sprung at the chance of getting some of her inheritance money. But there was a complication. The Treasure Trove Hotel suite was put under guard. Rumors about thieves digging up Mary's grave surfaced. 1,103 people had come forward claiming to be a relative of Ida's, each bringing evidence of their ties to the Wood or Mayfield family. But not a single one of them would get a cent. As it turned out, Ida Mayfield, later Ida Wood, had never been who she had claimed to be. Her real name had been Ellen Walsh. Her story about coming from a sugar plantation family was all fiction. She had fooled them all for years. Ellen Walsh was born in England to Irish parents. She had come with her family to the United States. Around the age of 19, she ran away from home and created a new name and persona for herself. Soon after she met with Benjamin Wood, her younger sister followed. Her sister changed her name to Mayfield to match her sister. Ida, or Ellen's late husband, Benjamin, had been in on all of it, but he carried her secret to the grave. But why had she gone to such lengths to cover her tracks? What caused her to reinvent herself? Back in the 1950s, and for a great majority of America's history, Irish immigrants were highly mistreated and discriminated against. Ida, or Ellen, had not made up a Southern belle story on a whim, although she came up with the surname Mayfield that way. She yearned for the big time, and to get there, she had to make herself look and sound white passing. A woman of Irish descent would never be allowed into high society. She knew this, and with flair and charm, she fooled them all. A man named Joseph Cox was charged with sniffing out the heirs of Ida's vast fortune. He plunged through boxes found in the Herald Square hotel room. His search took him from an unkempt grave in Massachusetts, to a small bakery in Ireland, all the way to Oldham, a small English town. Of her sugar plantation story, Cox said, she was not related to anyone in Louisiana. Instead, she had left home in Massachusetts in 1857, a lovely and determined lady of 19 years, whose wit, beauty, and vivaciousness bought her entree into New York society under her assumed name. Instead of going to any of the Mayfields or the Wood families banging at Cox's door, the fortune was split between 10 Irish families. A woman named Catherine Sheehan took the lion's share. The rest took away $90,000, over $1 million in today's money. Receiving inheritance money out of the blue from a relative you've never known sounds like a dream come true today, but back in the 1930s, during the Great Depression, it would have seemed like a miracle, a gift from above. Ida appeared into the world of high society and seemingly vanished back into the thin air from which she came. Her story created a sensation when her riches were discovered in the old hotel room. Each fresh revelation shocked the population at large. Countless books have been written about her, although her tale has drifted into obscurity in popular consciousness over the last 100 years. While her life story had a tragic and ominous end, she could be an unlikely inspiration for those from a lowly background who dreams of making it big.